Hi, my name is Kyle Long, and I'm here to talk about the expository essay. First, let's define what is an expository essay. For me, I like to think of it as exploring like a vision or a concept or an idea. And I like to think of it as explaining this vision or concept or idea to a friend or someone who's really listening or someone who really wants to hear or be engaged with your writing. And to me, this really it helps me focus that I'm writing to an active and engaged listener. So imagining that is something that helps me a lot to write in a very active and engaged way. Okay, so how do we go about picking a topic? Well, let me offer a suggestion that pick a topic that you like or that you are engaged with or that you are passionate about or that you enjoy or inspired by. Because if you do that, if you pick something like that, then it's going to show up in the writing. As an English teacher, I read a lot of papers and I can tell right away if the person is writing about something that they really like or that they really want to talk about, they really want to communicate to me, or if it's something that they're just writing for the assignment. And if they're writing about something they like, that it just shows up. They want to put more time into the work. When they are writing, that the writing just, it seems more powerful and more engaged. So this is really important. It's a way of making sure that you like the writing process a little bit better and that the reader is getting more out of it. You're getting a better product to begin with. So how do we go about picking an actual topic? Well, as English teachers, we see a lot of students pick topics that are overly broad and topics that could easily be covered in book-length articles or book-length works. And let me give you an example here. We're going to pick a topic that something that I see quite often, right? A large-scale topic and with an advocacy position. Here we'll pick dogs versus cats. And the advocacy position we're going to take here is that dogs are better than cats. Well, this could be easily covered in a full book length, talking about different traits and about different breeds and so on and so forth. So how can we narrow this down, right? Well, let's think about how we can do that. What if we picked specific breeds? What if we said the hound dog is better than the tabby cat? Well, now we've narrowed it down significantly, right? We're talking about one specific breed of dog, and then we're talking about one specific breed color of cat. Okay, well, can we move even further? Can we get this thing more narrowly focused so that our paper is very tight, very narrow, and very clear to the reader? How about the American foxhound is better than the American tabby cat? Well, now we've gotten a little bit more specific here, but can we take this a step further and become very specific? How about the hound dog, American hound dog, that I had as a child is better than the American tabby cat that I currently own? Well, now we've gotten very specific. We're talking about a very specific breed of dog, a single dog, right? The one that we used to own versus this cat that we now own. And so now we've gotten very, very narrow, and it's something that I think we can easily handle within these page lengths that I've been speaking about. So we've got this concept. Now, how do we begin the structure? How do we start the essay? Well, we begin with the introduction. And the introduction is just a statement of the thesis or the main point, just like we've talked about, right? So the idea of the American foxhound that I had as a child is better than the tabby cat I currently own. And we want to tell the reader about that right up front, right? Because we want them to know where we're going with this. We want them to say, okay, I understand what you're saying to me and that I can follow you from the very onset of the paper. And I'm not saying that it has to be, in the first few sentences or even in the first paragraph, but that the reader needs to be able to follow you from the very beginning of the paper, that you need to be leading us in this current direction that flows from the beginning very, very smoothly all the way to the end. Okay, so we have our initial kind of statement, and we're going to need something to kind of back it up, to create a foundation, to form support, to buttress these ideas. Because, unfortunately, no matter what your mother and father told you when you were kids, that because I said so is not good enough, that we need support. And we can do support in many different types of ways. We can do factual support. We can do even anecdotal support. We can do statistical support. but we need something, some logical foundation, something to create a foundation so that it holds up your rationale for or justifies your belief in this idea that the hound dog you had is better than the tabby cat you currently own. Okay, so how do we organize these ideas? So we organize these ideas into paragraphs. Each paragraph gets its own idea. And so let's run through what some of these ideas, some of this evidential support might look like. What if we have, for example, my dog always comes home to greet me when I come home from work or when I used to come home from school. And my cat always hides when I come home. Well, that's a good reason. That's a good piece of support material that we would put in its own paragraph. Okay, well, how about my dog used to lay at the foot of my bed when I was sick, and my cat hides my medicine. That's a very good reason. That's another good justification of why you believe this. Okay, and how about something like, my dog I had as a child never had fleas, but the cat I own now is building a flea motel in my house. Well, that's a good reason. You know, these are factual supports, you know, these are rationale that you're giving to why you believe the main point or the thesis statement. Okay, so we organize these into each paragraph, right? So that each piece of information, each main point gets its own paragraph. And that way, the reader can understand, see different segmented pieces of information and follow you very clearly. And using the paragraph can kind of visually cue into when you're changing ideas. Okay, and that's great because it helps them follow you. But how are we going to transition them from one point to the next? Well, we need transitions that flow from, you know, the introduction to the first point, from the first point to the second point, from the second to the third, and so on and so forth until you get to the conclusion. And what I've done here is I've created this document and I've put the transition sentences in green. And hopefully, since they're in green, you can see what I'm trying to do, how I'm working from one point to the next, you know, talking out of one point into the next point, helping the reader follow me from one point to the next. And think about it like a staircase, that gradually moving up from one point to the next point to the next point, so that the reader can slowly build towards your rationale, this reasoning that you're giving the reader. Okay, so after you've gotten the rationale, we've had the introduction, we've had the paragraphs, right? We have the supporting points, we have the transitions between the paragraphs. Now we need a way of concluding, or a way of summing up the paper. What I hear a lot from students is that the conclusion of the paper is just a restatement of the thesis. I'd like for you to think about it in a different way. How about we see the conclusion as a re-envisioning of the thesis through the lens of the supporting points. And so it's not simple restatement, but it's a reimagining of that main point in combination, in collusion with those supporting points, right? It's a chance for you to tie it all together in a fresh and powerful and dynamic and very strong way, so that the reader can follow you this one last time in this kind of rebirth of these ideas, right? No new information, though, but a rebirth of the information that you've already given them one final time. Okay, and so that's it. We've covered how to create an expository essay. So let me offer you one last grouping of information that I think is really important, that there is no perfect essay. As teachers, I think a lot of times students think we're trying to teach them one specific model, but that's untrue. You're not a robot, and we can't program you, and I promise you, we're not trying to program you. We want you to develop this individual, unique voice. You are a unique and individual person, and as so, you have this ability to create individual and unique work. I know that there's a lot of structure within the essay, but there's also a lot of room for creativity in the essay. And so, the more you practice, the more your voice will come into this space of the essay, and you'll feel more of an ownership, and that you will get better and better and better as you practice. And that's the next thing I want to tell you, that everyone is afraid of writing, from the best-selling novelist to someone who's just picking up the pen for the first time. Everyone's nervous, and afraid of offering up work for people to inspect and to judge. And this is a consistent feeling among all writers. You're not alone. We understand exactly how you feel. But know that every step that you do in your paper will bring it better and better and better and closer to this unique voice that you have. So the more you work with drafting and pre-writing and revision, the stronger and the better you get. And you will, every single person has the ability to be a very good writer. And so give yourself time, right? Be patient with yourself, because you're going to get better. You're going to reach a space where you feel comfortable and you feel more of an ownership of your own voice, and that's what we're looking for. So in closing, let me offer you good luck, and I know you can do it.